Hi folks, happy Friday. Although I'll let you into a secret, I'm actually recording this week on Thursday evening as I'm out at the theatre on Friday, which is now. If you're watching this on Friday, it's all very confusing. Let us start with what have I been reading this week. I finished In the Ocean of Night by Gregory Benford on audiobook, and the book opens with Nigel Walmsley, who's a slightly irascible, independently minded British astronaut working for NASA. He lives in the US now, on a mission to divert a comet fragment known as Icarus that is predicted to hit the Earth, with the usual devastating results. On closer inspection, though, he finds that it is not a comet fragment at all. It's artificial, an alien relic, a giant spaceship carved from rock. He refuses the order to destroy Icarus, wanting to explore further the interior. And after extracting some pieces of Icarus, he and his partner Len blow the thing all to hell as planned. Nigel is not exactly welcomed home with open arms. NASA's pissed off with him for not following the plan, and the rest of the world is pissed off at him for playing fast and loose with the fate of the world. Then there is the first of a few skips forward in time. Someone or something is jamming the signals from monitoring stations around Jupiter. Nigel is once more called upon to investigate and concludes that something has come along to investigate the destruction of Icarus. This is a tale of slow revelations, of one man's campaign to understand and to warn. Are these two ships a warning, or are they the vanguard of something altogether more sinister? There are further alien relics, a burgeoning religious movement, sightings of Sasquatch or Bigfoot or some kind of primitive man, and a worsening pollution on Earth, which is causing illness in lots of people, and polyamorous relationships, dire hints of unseen threats. I liked Nigel as a character, and I enjoyed his fish out of cultural water attitude, his rational thought process, and his ability to cut through the nonsense. He shows some flair for political manoeuvring too, a necessary evil to achieve funding, navigate the bureaucracy within NASA and the US government. Being a bit of a nerd myself, I also enjoyed Benford's scientific rigour. He's a physics professor by trade, and it shows. But it's not too dry, a bit like Timescape, another of his books that I enjoyed recently. It has a nice balance of human relationships in it too. In the Ocean of Night is the first book of what ultimately became the Galactic Center saga, a series of 6 books which chronicle a galaxy-wide war between mechanical and organic beings. In physical book format, I finished Marrow by Robert Reed, which I just about started this time last week. This is a book of impressive scale. It's set on the Great Ship, a mind-bogglingly big spaceship believed to have been constructed from a gas giant billions of years ago. The ship was found by humans, deserted but fully functioning, and it's now crewed by genetically enhanced humans, effectively immortal. These captains, with a capital C, are trusted to run the ship, to keep it on course and to manage the environment safely for the many billions of humans and alien species that call it home. After some scene setting, the elite of the captains is summoned by some ancient security protocols to gather secretly deep in the ship, and they're given a secret mission to explore the concealed inner core of the ship. What they find there is astonishing, but they are soon trapped. With just a few hundred very resourceful captains, they must survive, adapt, and find a way to escape. What's initially a super hostile environment that they call the Marrow is eventually tamed, and some sort of civilization thrives, a process that takes thousands of years. Meanwhile, back in the rest of the ship, their absence is a big mystery. Where did they go and why? I like the strange world of Marrow, and I thought that the captains were well drawn and yet very odd. Their perspective is very different. They think in terms of multiple lifetimes. Their plans are long term, and so are the machinations and the backstabbings that go with it. Factions develop, a religion forms, and there's some body horror. Technology is developed, and ultimately the captains and their descendants reach beyond the Marrow and into the ship proper with very different motivations and with interesting results. I maybe found it a little bit difficult to get into at first, but once I was 20% of the way in, I was very happy to continue on. And I think that there are several other books and a multitude of short stories set in the same world. I have book 2, The Well of Stars, and I will definitely get to it at some point. For my next audiobook, I picked up Cage of Souls by Adrian Tchaikovsky, a book I don't actually have a physical copy of yet. I'd really like to get the hardback, but they're as rare as rocking horse shit, and they cost an absolute fortune to buy. They must have had a tiny print run or something. Back to Cage of Souls. It's a dying Earth tale. I'm only a few chapters in, so it's early days, but I'm certainly enjoying the world building, and I like the protagonist, Stefan Advani, and so more on this to follow when I eventually finish it. Might be next week. But more likely, I think, the week after. In actual book, I'm a few chapters into The Edge of Human by K.W. Jeter, the sequel to Blade Runner, and so far so good. I'm enjoying the grungy noir feel of it, and I'm enjoying being back in the world of Deckard. It's good. Channel stuff next then. Subscribers are up at 2,807, which is up 14 on last week, a light week. But still, if you're one of those 14, or if you're new here today, then a big welcome to you all. I'm John, and I read, collect and waffle on generally about science fiction books, old and new. Comment of the week was from Ian, who watched the haul video and found the prospect of as new hardbacks impossible to resist, and ended up buying a few himself. He also suggested that I continue down the path of paraphrasing iconic SF films for my thumbnails. The first version of the thumbnail for that haul video was this, a misquote from 2001, of course. Thank you to Ian for taking the time to leave a comment, and the same to the rest of you that take the time to comment on my videos. I do really appreciate it, and I enjoy reading them. Let's take a quick look at what was on the channel this week. On Sunday, there was that book haul, chock full of excellent books, mostly hardbacks. There were just a handful of paperbacks in there. I've been using the proceeds from selling some excess books, and of course there's the very modest payouts from YouTube that I get from time to time to subsidise my book buying. And as a result, there are some more select items in that haul, books that I paid proper money for, more than the usual £3 or £4 anyway. And talking of which, I'll put a link to my eBay listing in the description. By default, it'll only ship to the UK, but if you're in parts foreign and you spot something that you simply must have, then you can drop me an email and we'll sort something out. I do enjoy a good haul, and is it weird if I say that I've watched that video, my own video, more than once this week? I think it might be weird. On Tuesday, there was a look at Golden Age science fiction, an era with a different start and end date depending on the interpretation. Most reference materials consider it to be 1938 to 1946, centred in the US and more specifically around John W. Campbell and Astounding Science Fiction magazine. I really enjoyed researching that video and putting together the artwork, and I had high hopes for it, covering as it does a similar period for my one and only viral hit, but no such luck. In fact, it got no more than an average amount of views and kind of died after 24 hours. I don't know why. If I compare the two videos, this one is objectively much better than the one from November last year. The mysteries of the YouTube algorithm. Anyway, enough navel gazing. If you haven't already watched it, then please do. I think you'll enjoy it. What did I watch this week? I caught up with Bookjack, who recently bought over 100 vintage science fiction books from a local used bookshop, which he says has been having a slow motion closing down sale over the last 18 months. I also watched a medical bulletin from Brian Lee Durfee, who's the owner and host of the best TV channel in the world. And he has been in hospital for a few months, but you can't keep a good man down. He has plans. I also watched a small but perfectly formed seaside haul from down in Australia on a newish booktube channel, SF Vintage Collector, spelt with an E at the end, not an O, I'm not sure why. And it's always worth checking out a new channel, so give it a watch if you haven't already seen it. As always, I'll put the links to all of those videos in the description. A brief book buying bulletin then. This week has seen some book chickens come home to roost. Orders that I placed last week have been delivered. I put a little order in with Brian over at Porcupine Books. It's a very quirky online bookshop that has a Stone Age website, but with a little patience, there are gems to be found. I'll put the link for that in the description. It's well worth a look. Despite only recording the last haul video a week ago, I already seem to have accumulated 17 books. No, you've got a book problem. Looking ahead to the coming week, on Sunday there will be that collection overview. I haven't quite decided which author yet. And sometime later in the week there will be, I'm not sure when exactly, there will be Bookshelf Bingo, slightly revised and updated after the prototype edition of last month. In this video I will be letting the fickle finger of fate help me select which books I read in June, or some of them at least. Reading wise, I have 1 week of May left and 3 books left on my planned TBR pile for this month. There's that Jeter Blade Runner sequel. I think I'll make quick work of this. And then I have that Yoon Lee short story collection with which I struggled on audiobook, not really getting out of the gate. I'm hoping it'll be easier going in actual book form, but I'm not going to be overly patient with it. I need to be engaged fast or it's getting taken out and shot. Finally, there is the 5th Earthsea book by Ursula Le Guin, The Other Wind, which again shouldn't be too challenging. I'm feeling confident then about clearing my TBR pile from May. Maybe there'll even be time for a slender book from the vintage shelves. We shall see. Let's not get too cocky. As always, thank you for watching. Have a super weekend, and until next time, goodbye for now.